Welcome to the Art of Rising, where we are exploring the journeys that shape us, the truth that awakens us, and the leadership that helps us to rise. I'm here with a powerful brother, Omar Ferreira. He is the founder of A Soul's Quest. He's a guide, a philosopher, and also he is opening up the way for new beginners to open up and transform themselves. So, thank you so much, Omar, for being with us today, brother.
Man, Omar, man, that's one of the greatest introductions that I have ever received. So thank you for being kind and being so grateful towards me. I really appreciate it, man.
Of
Really
course, brother.
appreciate it.
We have the same name, so
That's right.
and we have so many things in common. We're cut from the same cloth. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
listen, I just want to let the listeners know. Get ready for a deep one here, man. This is super powerful. Omar, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what are you doing with yourself these days?
Absolutely, absolutely. My life's journey, my life's quest started in Dominican Republic. Actually, I was born there until I was 10 years old. From there, I moved into the South Bronx. So I have both of those experiences, being born in the island, but also in the South Bronx. I moved to Florida to attend college. My parents moved down to Florida, so I'm a graduate of the University of Central Florida. And my life has been a journey to find my purpose, to find what I want. And eventually it led me to what I'm doing right now. My wife and I operate A Soul's Quest. And the idea behind A Soul's Quest is understanding that our lives unfold, right? We're constantly thinking that our lives are destinations. Or places that we need to get to. It is an unfolding. It is an awareness that happens when we actually embark on living from this perspective. So a Soul's Quest idea is that our life experiences, the things that we confront, the things that we face, those are the gateways to be able to find more about who we are. And then beginning to find that essence of who we are so that we could live from there, create from there.
I love that. That's super powerful. Why don't you tell us a little bit about A Soul's Quest and what does it encompass?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the terms that we use is we are called psychopump. It's a Greek term which means a guide in transitions, right? Our lives are a set of punctuations, right? They're a set of transitions from one stage of life to another. Most of the times, because we are not conditioned or not trained to think in these transitions, struggle comes, crisis, conflict, confusion. So our job is to be able to segue people from that point of confusion to a point of clarity. Right. One of the biggest things, the foundation of what we do, it's really to talk about identity, about who you are. And I don't mean in the traditional sense, right? We believe ourselves to be our culture. We believe ourselves to be the way that we look, the color of our skin, and the environment, the country that we're from. But we are of the belief at a Soul's Quest that we are a way for the universe to know itself. That's a quote from Carl Sagan. And we are the children of the universe, and we need to understand that identity. I mean, I listen to a lot of manifestation, and I listen to a lot. I work in the mental health field as well with male survivors of sexual abuse, and I see always what I call tactics in dealing with stuff, right? And what we want to approach life is from the point of actually living from what we're truly meant to be, which is the manifestation of the all. Now, your point of expression, how you express yourself, your soul, is different than mine. And that's the beauty of us. Doesn't make me better, doesn't make you worse. It's just a different point of expression, right? So for instance, when you look at a flower, or let's say you look at a rose and you look at a lily, right? You could appreciate both of the beauty of those two. They're unfold in their own time. They're unfold in their own different way. They have their own majestic way of being. Because we are so socially conditioned and because we are still trying to figure out what existence is about, we fail to recognize the beauty that is first inside of us and also outside of us. So a Soul's Quest is really distilling your life's journey, understanding the good, the bad, the ugly, the pitfalls, the things that you didn't choose, that you gained, that you inherited, right? Because I don't care what anybody tells me, and you could theorize it, but I ask people all the time, did you choose your parents? Did you choose where you were born? Did you choose your social economic conditions? We don't get to choose that.
Right.
That is just given to us. Now, we could theorize it and we could talk about, well, this is a possibility of that. But from our human experience in the here and now, we cognitively understand that that is a choice that we do not make. Most of the traumas, and again, I work in the mental health field, so most of the traumas that happen to us are not of our own doing. There are things that have been imposed on us. The idea is to be able to understand those experiences, distill it, because within that pain and that suffering, it's really the gateway to recognizing who we truly are. So that is what we do. That is the premise of what we do.
I can see that also in my life too. It was only until I started looking at some of these things in that way that I started to know who I am. And like for me to come to the realization that I know who I am. I am a self-aware man. It took me time to realize that. You know, my old man left when I was 9, but he probably checked out emotionally years before that. And then when he was gone, just around 12 and 13 with the teen years, it was crucial for that. And the streets were just, they were waiting for me, saying, hey, we're your family and those type of things. And but I also think of Don Miguel Ruiz, where he says that we're domesticated just like dogs.
Correct.
And that's a hard truth that some people don't like to accept, but it's a fact. We don't create anything around us, not our religion, not our food. They tell us, this is your music, this is the God you worship, this is the temple you go to. Like, it's quite intense.
And this is why the quest that we promote and we encourage is not a passive acceptance of things, and it's not a withdrawal from reality, right? There's 2 schools in Buddhism, for instance, right? One is the little boat and then the big boat. In one of them, you withdraw from the world. You go into your monastery and you separate yourself and you try to bring about consciousness from that point of view, from the inside out, to meditate into things. Personally, my experience, this is what I believe, we are put on in this place and time, right? Because our existence happens on an average of 72 years, right? That's our lifespan as a human being. And we are not all born. I mean, I wasn't born 100 years ago. I am not going to be born 100 years from now. I'm born in the here and now to experience that here and now. And we did the here and now to be an active participant in change, right? So one of the things also that I and you alluded to that, because it's actually, we are domesticated, right? But here's the funny thing about that. A lot of people talk about The Matrix, and I love The Matrix. The Matrix is one of the greatest mythological movies that have ever made. Unfortunately, it gets misconstrued, right? Because the Matrix, what powers the Matrix, it's individuals. It's our full beliefs, our full perceptions of what life should be is what gives it power, right? So the system itself is perpetuated by our false beliefs, and only us can make that change. That's why it's important to kind of like understand what it means to be an empath, right? An empath is a person that feels, but it's also a person that needs to act. And a person that needs to act in the here and now, because spirituality, our lives mean something. There are powerful instruments to be able to impact everything around us. You know, I mean, it is such a hard concept to accept. And I was thinking about it before our interview, that it sounds simple. You know, it's simple. It's like, wait a minute, that's it? I'm an active participant, you know. What about all these challenges around me, right? But the reality is that is within this time is when we find ourselves. Like, for instance, you're a perfect example of all your trials, all that stuff that you went through, growing up without a father, going into the streets, and then meeting different people along the way that helped you become the person that you are, so that you could be here and now having this conversation with me.
Yes,
right?
I believe that wholeheartedly, and it's not an easy concept for us to grasp because they don't teach us any of these things.
Oh,
Just like birth and death or love and those type of things, they don't teach us those things. But in a
mhm.
soul's quest, I believe you guys are working with the hero's journey, right? Is this
Yes.
or you're working with it like with Joseph Campbell?
Mhm,
Is that
mhm.
the hero's journey, right?
Yeah. One of the I will tell you my first breakdown, or my first the first time that I came across transition in life was my junior year in college. I wanted to go into the FBI, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I met an FBI agent, and I said, "Oh, look at this prick! I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah, that's why they say don't meet your heroes.
No, the major heroes will disappoint you, right?" And so I went into like a very strong existential part, but I also at the same time, I again, like a lot of us, I grew up without a father, and I needed to go ahead and confront that, and I'm proud of myself that I went and I not and when I mean confronting, I mean like meet and talk and address and get to know his point of view, my point of view, and be
Mm,
able to accept, right? Because at that time I came across a couple of things that really changed my life. Number one was the book I'm Okay, You're Okay, Thomas A. Harris. And he taught me
mm,
about a lot of different things, in particular the idea of forgiveness, right? Because in order for us to move forward and embark on our quest, we have to be able to forgive those people, right?
mhm.
Now, the Hero's Journey, The Power of Myth, was the book that changed my life. And my
Mm,
friend Giovanni Vargas actually introduced me to the book. But then after that, I just went ham, and I got the VHSs from the
right.
library, and I
Yep.
learned, and I
Mhm,
bought it so many,
mhm.
and I could watch that, and I could probably say it from
Oh,
beginning to end, right?
yeah.
Because the
I mean, I
beauty.
must have seen it like 10 times. I mean, many times I've seen it, many countless
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
then from there it started, right? So the hero's journey in a nutshell, right, is this is the synopsis of all the world mythologies
Mhm.
and all the religions throughout the entire world, right? The hero's journey is the foundation of Jungian psychology. It's understanding all these different stories and the common denominators amongst all. The hero's journey, however, was taken as a storytelling device, which makes sense because our all mythologies and our all traditions were all verbal, right? They were all oral. It
Yeah.
was That's
Mhm.
how they passed down. So
Yeah.
the tool of telling a story like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, you name it,
Right.
this is how it
Right.
is. It
Mhm,
follows that threshold.
mhm,
The thing is that this, and Joseph Campbell says, this relates to you. This
mhm,
is what you need to go to.
mhm,
You
mhm,
need to answer the call, right?
mhm,
The
mhm,
call to the adventure, which is the first part, it's that idea in which you know that there's something in you that's
mhm,
not okay.
mhm,
You
mhm,
feel that yearning, you feel that I don't know what's going on, your emotions, your all that energy that says this is not okay, I am not okay. That's the
mhm,
call to the adventure. From
mhm,
there, you have to go into the quest to find out what that is.
mhm,
You're going to meet some people that are going to be your allies, right? You're going to meet some people that are going to be your adversaries. They
mhm,
are going to see that, and that's going to
mhm,
happen. You're going to go to a point in which you are completely going to be dismantled. You're going to be broken down. You know
mhm,
what I mean? It's like
mhm,
you're crying with the snot coming out, and
mhm,
you're
mhm,
praying, and you're just like, what am I doing? It's like
mhm,
you are like at that verge of like the end, right?
mhm,
And a lot of us, I mean, I'm man enough to admit that I've been at that very edge, at the
mhm,
very edge of saying this is not worth it.
mhm, mhm,
you
mhm,
know and so at that point, the life comes in.
mhm,
Life comes in and says, walk this way. Some kind of realization comes to you. i
mhm.
can't i can't tell you what it is for you, because
How
you
about
have.
how about for you? What was the transcendence? What was the
For me, was realizing deep down inside that I always wanted to give,
Mm,
right? I'll tell you
mm,
a story as to why, because this is the important thing that happens throughout a life. At one point or another, someone or something comes into your life.
mm,
To me, it was a man called Ken Mullen. And Ken Mullen was like my father figure. He was a New York City police officer, Irish, from the South Bronx. He was our scoutmaster, and Ken influenced a lot of lives positively. And I saw him. He taught me how to be a leader. He taught me what he means to lead. He showed me what he meant to lead. What he meant to lead. I mean, you're from New York, and think about this. I'm 14, 15 years old, taking 60 kids on the subway to go downtown to Madison Square Garden from the Bronx. Never lost one. So think about that. That's the kind of trust, the kind of belief that Ken had in me, my friend Danny and George, and he instilled that with us. But this is the thing that he gave me that I always stood with me. It was during my confirmation in Catholic Church. He gave me a $2 bill and a $100 bill. And then he gave us this word. And he says, I want you to take this $100 bill and I want you to spend it. I don't want you to save it. I don't want you to do anything except spend it. So my friends and I ended up going to Action Park. So I don't know if you remember Action Park, but we went to Action. I loved Action Park, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So the other part, he gave us a $2 bill. And the lesson was this. He wanted us to understand power and that we just received the Holy Spirit, right? But it's like any muscle in your body. If you don't use it, you lose it. So the $100 is I want you to feel that temporary power, right? The power to have something and get it and going and getting it without any remorse, just getting it and feeling that power, seeing it come and seeing it go, right? But then the $2, I have to hold on to it, right? And that power, the everlasting power, is how to influence others by the way that you live your life. That was the lesson. And now I'm 15 years old, right? I understand what he's saying, but I really don't understand what he's saying. But I know that he meant something. And in the $2 bill, he put the words POMIT, POGIF, right? So the power of man is temporary, the power of God is forever, right? So he wanted us to truly understand that to really have power is to live our lives in a way that influences others, right? And so when I had that breakdown, that came in and made me realize my job is to do that. He taught me how to do that. So what I did. So my career after that, I worked in the nonprofit world with youth development professionals. So I worked with youth, inner city, and everywhere. I work with all types of kids. I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm thankful that I still to this day have kids that are in college, professionals that reach out to me up to this day. Yes. And that was my calling. And, you know, as a Hispanic man, as a Latin man, right, that we're supposed to be rugged and tough, you know, I got a lot of pushback from, you know, you work with kids and blah, 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 blah. Right. But it was my calling, right? And that's what I did. And I enjoyed it and I loved it.
Oh, so that when you get the calling, it's something else. Like I try to explain to people, but I just tell them, look, it's what I'm hearing. Like I can't stop hearing it.
Exactly.
Like at every moment, it's like pushing me into these different corners, and then I just have to let go of these other things that I'm holding on to in order to embrace this thing. Yeah. But for me, Joseph Campbell and the whole the mythologies is beautiful, and it helped me a great deal see the world in many different lights. There is a quote by him that I'm going to read it because I can't remember it just verbatim. Is
it a furthermore quote?
It's the first function of mythology is showing everything as a metaphor to transcendence.
Yes.
So all of those movies that you talk about, and it's beautiful. It's how we pass on things and help people to rise.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, right? He talks about denotation and connotation when it relates to metaphors, and this is the nerding me, so I apologize if I sound nerdy. No, but a denotation is just really verbatim what he's saying, right? A metaphor is, you know, you are fast as lightning, right? You could understand it from a verbatim point of view, but what it connotes, it's not that you are like lightning; it's just very fast. So a metaphor is a language that doesn't speak to logic. It is speaking to the essence of you, and it pitches you out there. What happens a lot of the time, and this is what is interesting about, for instance, we talked about the Matrix earlier. If you look at the latest Matrix Resurrection, it didn't have a popular appeal, but it had a very interesting point, right? After all Neo did, right? The first three matrices. The end result was that his life became just a video game. It became something trivial. It became something, whatever, right? The essence of it wasn't gone. And unfortunately, our religions have actually become that, right? Our heroes like Jesus, like Muhammad, like Moses, like Buddha, they have become trivialized because the point wasn't for you to idolize them. The point was for you to emulate them. I
Right.
tell people all the time is like, look at all the stories, any stories of anybody, the Buddha, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, they had to spend time in solitude. Jesus had to spend his 40 days in the desert. Buddha had to sit in the tree. Muhammad had to go in the cave, right? Moses had to go in the desert.
Yes,
You
the
know,
journey. It's the hero's journey. It's the
it's the
hero.
journey. It's the
Yeah,
journey
you
of
got to go to the
solitude.
dragon. Yeah, you have to go get the dragon. You have
Exactly.
to go to the dark cave. You have to
You have to,
be
you
out
know,
there.
but that's what the gold lies. That's where your real essence lies when you confront that solitude. Because again, you could easily get deluded by new trends, by all these things. You could get deluded by that. You know, society is very good when it comes to marketing this idea of a perfect life, but there's a difference between being alone and being in solitude, right? Two big different things, you know, and we confuse the being alone and it's an opportunity for us to truly get to know who we are, right? Granted, it's easier for someone like me to say because I have an introverted personality, but it is something that is necessary for most of us to do so we could find that essence. So the heroic journey, it's not so much it's important to understand about you, but the most important thing is the return with the elixir of life, right?
Right.
You have to come back because there is nothing in this universe that doesn't contribute. Nothing.
That's
So
powerful.
when we find that thing that we are, we have to be fearless, right? We have to be desireless. We have to be able to, in spite of our perceived notion of success or failure within this realm, which is all temporary, we have to follow our path, because if not, we're not living what we're supposed to be in the here and now.
Right,
You know, and these are challenging things. These are, again, I don't want to be dishonest about the reality. I can't give you this, you know, I have a process and I have things that I teach, but I'm not going to tell you these are the 5 steps. It's like, no, there's a lot of introspection, right?
Well, then how about when someone is on the threshold of transformation, how do you or a soul's quest help to guide them to their transformation in order for them to rise?
No, absolutely. So we formulated what is called the PEP process, and it's perspective, experience, and philosophy, right? So let's talk perspective first. So when you talk about perspective, right, when you see something like it's really, really close to you, right, you can't see the big totality of it all, right? One of the big differences between Eastern and Western philosophies is the fact that in the Western philosophies, we see individual things, right? In Western philosophies, if you look at the Gi, you know, it's a totality. Nothing really is separate. Everything is unified, right? So if you gain the perspective of stepping back, like widening your gaze, like really almost having like this cosmic view of existence, right?
Right.
You begin to get another perspective, a different perspective. You know, astronomy is something to think about. Like, how did the universe be from one point? And if it came from one point, and you have these collisions and you have all these crashes, and a star condenses and explodes and something happens, you begin to see patterns. You see cycles. You see the reflection of the whole in your life, and it begins to give you peace because you now are part of the process of life. You're not
yes, of course. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
before I lose the point, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that you guys are also delving into the blue dot, right? That was Carl Sagan, right?
Yes, yeah,
And it gave us that view of like we're nothing but like a speck of dust,
yes,
nothing. Like, and we
yes,
think that all these things are so big. So
precisely.
how do you move these things into helping people?
Well, but the idea of Carl Sagan, right, is of the pale blue dot. It's really looking at existence and seeing really what's important and what isn't important. We 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 we, we spend so much time in the differences, right? In fighting to being better than somebody else, right? That we lose the point of life, which is about creation and unfoldment, right? You
Mhm.
know, I love nature. I love seeing, sequoia trees and the big redwoods, and seeing
Mhm.
oceans and seeing those type of things, because you can see the flow of nature, right? This is something that ancient cultures were really attuned with, a unity with nature, understanding the cycles, understanding those type of things, right? So when I look at the pale blue dot and I look at that stuff, it's not so much that we are insignificant, it's that we are active participations in the act of life,
Mm, mm,
right? But if you look at it,
mm,
there's collisions that happen in space. There's asteroids that happen.
mm,
There's galaxies that collide and combine. But
mm,
from there, there's a period in which there's commotion, and
mm,
there's a period where there is stability.
mm,
You
mm,
know, here on Earth right now, we're going to a long period of stability, because in the past it was either really, really hot, or
mhm,
we were a frozen planet, right?
mhm,
Those are things that you can look up. I'm not making it up. It's just part of the
mhm,
cycle of life. But those is the reflections that happen on us. That's the
mhm.
whole idea of the Hermetic principle: as above, so
Right,
below. We are
right, right,
we
right.
are
Yeah.
reflection of the macro
The
internally.
Kabbalion, the Kabbalion. Yeah, that's one of
Precisely.
my great book too. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier,
No, no,
but I
go ahead.
wanted you to get back to that. You said it was prep, right?
Pep,
Perspective was the
pep. So
pep. Yes.
perspective, yeah,
Continue.
yeah.
Yeah.
So perspective is being able to widen your gaze about existence, right? Second is looking at your experiences and deriving better conclusions from it, right? If you ask the question, why did this happen to me? That's a never-ending pit. You're gonna go down and down and down. If you ask the question, why was this situation going to teach me or wanting to teach me? What am I learning from this situation? It gives you a different perspective, because now you are targeting your brain to look for things. You're forcing those neural pathways to actually get challenged to think about solutions rather than staying in there, right? So experience is about that, but also it's about how do we experience existence, right? And this is important to understand, because I use the word soul, and in our modern culture, we don't want to use that word because it's like foo-foo, right? But there is a very precise definition of soul when it comes to Greek mythology, right? The soul is, number one, our impulses, which we all have them, and we can't deny those natural impulses. And I'm talking about things like Kundalini energy and the serpent power, and our desire for love, our desire for power, and all those things. Those are, we need to understand that. We don't want to make them. We want to understand them rather than say no. We don't want to feel them.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm,
So that's one part of the soul that we have to understand. Right. The automation of our body. You can't make your heart stop, right? It's natural. So those are natural impulses that we have to understand. So number one, your impulses. Number two, it is your emotions, right? Your emotions are a compass for things that are happening within you, right? And again, from a scientific standpoint, you're talking about the neurological system, the mammalian brain. Now you're getting into the idea of thinking,
mhm,
right? Because it's through thought that we could expand our consciousness and our greater understanding. So from there, we begin to there. So the soul is a combination of those three things: our
mhm,
impulses, our emotions, and our ability to use our thought, right? To make sense of that. So by widening your experience of how you see things and you perceive situations that happen, understanding all those emotions within you, all those components of your soul, now you could come to the third part, which is philosophy, right? And philosophy is not something in an ivory tower. A professor knows about it and teaching you if and then and all that stuff. Philosophy is the quest for knowledge, wanting knowledge. That's what philosophy is. Philosophy started with Socrates and the Agoria just asking questions. Hey, what does it mean to live a good life?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be successful?
I know. Yeah.
Right?
I love his story. I don't know. I'm sure you know about, the charges, the trumped up charges that they got
Correct.
him for, right? He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
influencing the young people and not worshiping the local gods. So the
Mhm.
first one is, influencing the young people because he was just telling them, like, ask questions. Why?
Precisely.
Why do you
Precisely.
eat that food? Why
Hmm.
do you go to that temple?
Hmm.
Why? Just
Hmm.
ask yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you start looking at philosophy, right, I call it a spectrum of choice, right? The reason being because you could go from hedonism, right, all the way to Buddhism and everything in between, right? So you got your quest for power, which is Machiavelli. You have your nihilist, you have your existentialist, you have your transcendentalist. You have a spectrum of what to choose from, right? And the problem is that we've picked one thing and we feel that we have to live our lives just on that thing. There's a big movement now on stoicism, right? You can't always be stoic. You need a little hedonism in your life too. You need drive when you're creating something. So what we call it when we advocate when it comes to creating your philosophy for life is what is going to be your approach
Mm.
to how you live your life, not my approach. I'm a person that likes quiet and solitude in
Right.
order for me to recharge myself, in
Mm.
order to do what I do,
Right.
right? I don't need certain things, but that's my preference. But you
Mm.
have to find out what is your approach to life.
What's
What
your
is your
philosophy?
yeah, what is your philosophy? Because we
Mm.
can no longer, this is one of the things that Joseph Campbell warned us about in the
Mhm.
hero's journey and the power of myth and all this stuff is we no longer have a cohesive myth.
Mm. Mm.
If you look at our society, if you look at our world, we have
Right.
fragmented religions and ideologies that no longer serve
Mm.
the here and
Mm.
now, right? So we don't have a cohesive mythology, right? Because the next mythology is inevitably a philosophy of everybody being a human being and being a part of the earth. We haven't seen that yet. So the only people that could actually arrive at that conclusion is us as individuals and begin
Mm.
to live from that essence.
Mm.
you know
Mm. Mm.
so
Yes.
so so
Mm.
that point of perspective, experience, and philosophy is to
Right.
be able to use our cognitive abilities to be able to understand all this, being
Mm.
able to
Mm.
use the tactics like breathing, like
Mm.
meditating, like
Right.
journaling, like using those tactics, but
Mm.
we have to arrive at the ultimate conclusion before we start doing all those things of understanding and beginning to to really understand within us who we really are, which we are an aspect of the universe.
Yeah, yes, it's those tools that you speak of that are much necessary.
Mhm,
Here at the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, one of our staples is the breath work with the cold plunge. And I
mhm,
think we spoke about that before. And
mhm,
and it pushes
mhm,
people into the present moment.
mhm,
But the breath work alone, it works with the frontal lobe. This is the new part of the brain in like the evolution of humans. But this is the
mhm,
one like the security system, the one that helps you to choose that shirt you're wearing today or
mhm.
the shoes and those type of things. And it makes all these choices, including like don't swim in deep water, there's sharks there and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or look both ways before you. But oftentimes it's on overdrive,
Mhm.
and then it stops us, like, oh, be careful, don't do that podcast, they might not like you, they don't like
Exactly.
the way you look, you don't speak well, you don't have
Mhm,
the education, you're not white
mhm.
enough, you're not tall enough, you're not short enough, you're not
I
yeah,
hear you.
it's just
Yep.
crazy. So with the breath work alone, that quiets the monkey mind,
Mhm.
that. And then
Yeah.
with the cold water exposure, the temperatures are really, really low, and it's quite challenging, it's uncomfortable, I mean, but that's the point of it. But
Mhm.
what it does is that it pushes people into the present moment, because we spend too much time thinking about what happened to us, or, oh, when I see that guy I'm gonna, and that it never works out like that. You never
No.
So you're just wasting time. So
Yeah.
if anything, you get to know who you are in those struggles
Yes.
that you speak about.
Yes.
We
You,
have
you
to
know,
get to know.
you
By,
do.
by those things, by the meditation and things like that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I mean, this is you made an excellent point. I mean, in Judaism, I spent a couple of years at the Kabbalah Center down in Miami, and in one of the seders, they have eating horseradish, and when you start eating it, it's just the worst, right? But as if you stay with it, because the idea is to be present, and to understand the temporary situations really are,
Right.
right? And then focus on that idea of the here and now, because you it's bitter, but then after you chew it for a little bit, now it becomes palatable and
That's
sweeter,
interesting. That's
right?
interesting about suffering. We
Mhm.
there has to be some point of that, because we live in this comfortable world, Omar.
Mhm.
And like,
Mhm.
if you're cold, you just turn on the heat. If you're high, you
Yep.
just turn on the air conditioner.
Mhm.
Like, we turn the water on, it runs, but the struggle, it's gone. Like, and the
Yeah.
more we get into this technology, which is great, we're
Mhm.
up to date, everything is beautiful, but we're not struggling, we're not challenging ourselves, we're not growing.
Here's one thing that I will say to that, right? And this is one of my one of the things that constantly surprises me is our inner world. It is so powerful. Our soul knows, and it'll guide us if we listen to it. You know, but we're so not okay listening to our inner world, because we live in a society that values data and logic, but
Mhm,
data and logic has gotten us here,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm. Right.
And in one of the videos, that Joseph in the Power of Myth, there's a one of the previews is about Chief Seattle, right, doing a
Mhm, mhm,
speech,
mhm,
and he talks about all the changes that they're doing, and he's talking about the destruction of forests, the killing of the buffaloes and all that stuff. And he says this line, and I always remember: the end of living and the beginning of survival. With
mhm,
all our wires, with all our technology, are we really living, or are we just surviving? Right? Because
mhm,
nothing really is coming to our sense. And if you look at the symptoms of our culture, right?
mhm,
I grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? You the music then, the artistry then, compared to where we are now, there's a
mhm,
big deficiency in the soul, right? It's one-sided right now, because it's very it's calling for the impulsive natures, those the desire for sex, the desire for that. That's what our current music is. It's
mhm,
healing in that direction. It's very superficial, because there are people that feel this and know this, and
mhm,
that's when the soul is it's calling. And those are the people that I really would like to work with, the ones that
mhm, mhm,
understand that there is
mhm,
something not right. I
mhm.
feel it and I know
Right,
it, right?
right, right.
And
I
I
love those too. I love it. So
Mhm.
how can how can we move from a self-centered, life to a
Mhm.
soul-centered?
The idea, it all goes back to identity,
Mhm,
right? It all goes back to identity. And let me just give you this little metaphor, right?
mhm,
The sun is the center of our universe, right? Without the sun, we don't exist, right? It powers everything. It powers us, right? We are children of the sun, right?
mhm,
But
mhm,
the sun is a self-sufficient entity, right? Its
mhm,
internal fusion is what gives it all the power that it has, right?
mhm,
But we are an aspect of it, right?
mhm,
So the sun just imparts.
mhm, mhm,
It doesn't discriminate. It just does what it does.
mhm,
There's no biases. There's nothing. It just does, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
since we are children of the sun, we are built with that same essence of just imparting and giving and contributing.
mhm,
Unlike any other species on this planet, right? Some of us have the tendency just to take for ourselves,
mhm,
right? And destroy everything around us,
mhm,
right? The transition needs to happen in which you need to see yourself as an aspect of that, of the sun,
mhm,
but also see everything around you as
mhm,
an
mhm,
aspect of that as well. Now
Yes.
you could use the sun, you could use the universe, you could use God, whatever is convenient for you. But I challenge people to go out and observe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't deny the fact that we need the sun for
Mm-hmm.
everything to function here, and
Right.
we are a part of it. So that would be the analogy. And again, it goes back to that idea of who am I? And that's a deep
Mm.
personal thing to
Yeah.
really embark on,
So
because
what
the moment that you
like that.
realize that, the moment that you realize, oh, whoa, wait a minute, right? Oh, that's blasphemy.
Right, right,
Right?
right.
That's
My,
blasphemy.
my question to you is,
Mhm.
why do you think so many people, resist their calling?
Um, uh, Part of it is fear, right? Because one of our needs, our natural needs, is to belong.
Mm-hmm.
It's a natural impulse to want to be a part of something. And so the moment that you are alone, right? That's why it's so challenging for those people. I mean, the Buddha walked away from every single desire that he could have, to be alone. Now that in and of itself, that idea of taking the time to not belong to something, because we pretend that I'm unique and this and that and the other,
Mm-hmm.
but when it's time for you to truly be alone and
Mm-hmm.
not belong to something, that's scary.
Right.
So if we are able to take that, and I'm not saying for a long period of time, for me, it's I had a function in the world, but I also had a craving to explore my inner world. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to be able to find a time within my day so that I could focus. So I do that every morning. I get up. I study things. I look at stuff. A lot of the things that I watch when I watch TV are, documentaries and history stuff and things that appeal to me, that I feel like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of that, using that alone time to
Mm.
nourish what's inside of you till you could start discovering. And
Yeah.
it starts by, what do you like? Do you
Right.
follow your bliss, like Joseph Campbell says.
Right.
I like reading. I like knowing stuff. I like understanding this. I don't want to read. My wife lists like Moriarty and Jodi Picoult and things like that. I mean, that's her thing. But what calls me is things like Richard Bach and illusions. Nietzsche is interesting to me. Kabbalah is
Right.
just, when
Right.
at one point it was interesting. Follow
Mm.
those things that come to you, because the universe is constantly giving you hints.
Yeah. You do
And
have to know. You have to know. You have to really want it. 'Cause
yes.
whenever I speak with someone, and sometimes we make judgments, right?
Hmm.
Everybody does that. We judge everything, like the
Hmm.
tree is pretty and the kid is ugly and the food is, these are all judgments that we're making.
Yeah.
But we should try to separate ourselves from those judgments and see that people, they're on their journey,
They
whatever it
are.
is that they're doing at the time. But
Yeah.
how does someone know when they're stuck in a cycle, versus being on their true quest?
Yeah. You feel it. Your emotions is one of those compasses of your soul, right? Your emotions tell you, they're just pinging. It's like when your machine start ding ding ding. They tell you when you're on the path and when you're up the path. Like you truly feel the anguish. If you're on the path, right, there will be moments in which your questioning is like, oh my God, can I really do this?
Mhm.
But it's not going to be a question, man, I don't want to do this. It's like, this is what I need to do. It's challenging, but it's yours. You
Mm.
know,
And it's worth it too.
it is, yeah, because it is a life that is worth living. It is,
Yeah.
I know. Again, it goes back to all this stuff. An unexamined life is not worth living. A life that is completely yours,
Mhm.
it's not worth living. And what I like to see, and one of the things that I wanted to see in the work that I people,
Mm.
and in the work that I do with adults now,
Mhm.
is, again, active participation, having
Mhm.
these types of conversations, creating something like a soul's quest, so
Mm.
people feel a safe space in which they could take a chance. They could say, I feel this and I
Mm.
would like to contribute, but I just don't know
Mm.
how.
Mm.
And I want to find my way, but I just don't know how. That was one of the challenges that I had. I had the
Mm.
challenge of figuring out what do I don't know what to do. but I knew it was in here,
Right.
right? It was
Right.
in here,
You
and it
heard it.
took.
You heard the calling, and you took steps to do that. Unfortunately, we don't know, and then we go, it's just nothing. Let me just keep muddling through this and just try to get, and then
Mhm.
you miss it, the calling. Like it's like
Yeah, yeah,
miss.
and you have to take once in a while in life, because again, I tell people that I don't mean to be it's dark, but the reality of our existence is that we're on Earth for on average 75 years,
Mhm.
right? And you came from the end of the quotation, and then you have those years in between, and then you're going to go back to the end of the quotation. It's really, what are you going to do in between to make
Right.
it worth it for you? And a lot of people think, oh, I gotta create something huge, and
Right.
and
Right.
you know no 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 is it's it's what it's in your soul. If it means that you want to have make a great empanada or a great sandwich, and you want to sell that, that's your thing. Go for it. There is no judgment in the degree of your expression, but that's something else that we do too. We judge the a point of expression as better or worse. It's not. It's their point of expression from when the universe wanted them to be, and they created something from that. That's a beautiful thing,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
it could be something simple. We live in a society of this. We want this grand thing, the fireworks and this and that.
Mm-mm.
The soul speaks quietly. It's a whisper,
Mm-mm.
and you have to listen to it. Everything else is noise. It's the
Mm.
whisper. It's the
That's
whisper in your
beautiful.
soul, and
I
people
love
know
that.
it. People know it.
They do. They do. They
We
do.
just don't want to acknowledge it.
No, we don't. We don't. They don't teach us about these things. Nothing, nothing. Oh my goodness. If I could
Mhm.
tell you the thing that I was taught, like it's just, they was way off. And then once I started becoming more aware, I just had to unlearn all of those things.
Mhm.
I just had to unlearn everything. But
Yeah.
we're coming up on the time, and I wanted
Mhm.
to know if there was one thing that you can tell somebody who feels lost or who feels unseen, and
Mhm.
they don't know what is it that they should be doing with themselves, or they're feeling overwhelmed,
Mhm.
trying to get on that path, or they don't even know there is a path. What is it that you would tell them?
It's interesting, right? The first thing that I will tell them is ask the question, what am I learning from this?
Mm,
What? What happens neurologically is that it forces you to start looking for answers rather than being stuck on asking, why does this happen? When you ask what, how, right? Those questions that make you think, you begin to question and say, oh, okay. Oh, all right. I see this. I see that. So it forces you to do that. The other thing that I will ask is, for me, I had some physical mentors like Ken Mullen that I mentioned, but also Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, Thomas A. Harris, Nietzsche, all these books that came to me, Illusions by Richard Bach, all these things that came to me. I took those things seriously, because sometimes there's stuff that happens to us that we just kind of like dismiss, but these are signs that the universe gives us to open up. So I do that. And the other thing that I suggest is document, right?
mm,
Take a I always have a journal, right?
mm,
Because it's not so much an idea of sitting down and just saying whatever, but sometimes I need to make sense of things, and it's easier to put it down on paper than it is just to keep it in your mind, right? Because when you have the action of
mm,
physically putting something down, it
mm,
helps you make sense of it better than instead of holding it in. So those are a couple of tricks that I use, a couple of things that I use to
mm,
make sure that I'm beginning to find that. And and again, it's a process of evolution. You're going to do some things, they might work, they may not work, but that's okay,
mm,
right? You have to flow with life. A river follow the path of least resistance. I
mm,
mean, it carves its way, and sometimes it smashes against a rock, and then it finds another way. And it's so
mm,
like us.
mm,
We have to look at our lives not as a place to a destination, but we have to be loving with ourselves. Like,
mm,
it's a quest to discover it. It's a
Mhm.
quest. It's
Mm.
not this, oh my God, I have to do this. It's like
Right,
it's a
right.
quest. And that all that takes is the little shift of perspective of, oh, I could enjoy this,
Mm.
right? And then when your emotions tell you otherwise, it's like, no, I want to enjoy this.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's putting our attentions on something other than the
Mhm.
pain and suffering that we want. You
Right,
know,
right, right, right. It can be quite complex, in different ways, but that's some great advice. Thank you so much. Those are some of the things that we also tell people here at Omziel. We're big on journaling. I have my
Mhm.
journal. I was just writing in it yesterday. I sometimes I'm hot and heavy, man. I go for days and days and weeks, and then sometimes weeks go by
Yep.
and nothing. I don't write. I go, and then I go back and I put, even if it's a couple of lines, man. I think it's
Yeah.
so important. Even
Yeah.
just a couple of lines. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
feeling like crap today. That's it.
That's it.
Something just like
Yeah.
that.
And
Or
it's
like,
okay if you go a couple of days without it. Again, it's yours.
yeah,
Allow
yeah, yeah,
yourself
yeah.
the opportunity just to be a child again,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? To be that kid and just explore. And it's like, oh, it's okay. All right. Well, you
Wow.
know, allow
That,
that.
that's beautiful, Omar. I was in deep meditation not so long ago, and I started thinking about my inner child, and
Mhm.
I found him in the corner in a fetal position.
Mm.
I kid you not. And I picked him up, bro. I was crying, bro. It was just like so empowering. Like I was
Mhm.
just not crying because I was weak, and I was like, no, it was like, oh man, I
Mhm.
see you, I got you. Come on, let's go. Took his hand, and we was out of there, bro. So yeah, I do advise that for
Yeah. And
people
and
too.
that's the first heroic journey
Mm,
for people in this lives is to be able to find that child.
mm,
That's the
mm,
first real journey.
yeah,
That's the first quest,
yeah.
is
The
to
child,
find that child, to
the child
find
is
that
there.
because
Mhm,
the child is there, and that from there is what Nietzsche call a wheel rolling from its all essence. You start
mm,
creating and living from that child, and
mm,
it's a different point, and it's a different point of expression. It's a different way of living
mm,
when you are actually living from that child instead
mm.
of living from what we call our ego and the
Mhm,
accumulation of our
mhm,
negative
mhm, mhm,
experiences.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Thank you so
yeah.
much. You mentioned some great books. I'm going to put them in the show notes. And why don't you tell people where they could find you?
Sure, sure. You can find us at ASQ Empowerment. ASQ Empowerment, it is our hub where you can find a lot of information about us. We do have a webinar coming up on August 20th, and the title of it is "Who Am I? Breaking the Illusion."
Mm,
Breaking the bondage of illusion. So we are going to be doing that on the 20th. It will be information on the ASQ Empowerment website. So find us there,
mm,
ASQ podcast on other platforms. You can listen to us there. We have some great interviews coming up in the
mm,
next few weeks. So yes,
mm.
tune in, tune in.
I would love to be on that podcast, man. Let
Oh
me see if
yeah.
I can buy myself a spot there, man.
No. I actually, I'll send you some dates, and then we could
Oh,
talk
that's
about it. Yeah,
beautiful.
we
I
we
love it.
just we just actually started posting a lot of that stuff on another network. It's called Gnostic TV,
Okay.
and it's a lot of
Wow.
people like us sharing. So we'll be in touch. We'll talk some more, and
Okay.
maybe we could we'll continue to talk for sure.
We will. We will. We will. And now you're doing this with your wife, correct?
Correct.
And she's the one that I see on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right? The one that was looking for the blonde hair, blue eye surfer, right?
Yeah.
In Florida. Yeah.
Yes. And she ended up with with me.
Ah,
Yeah, she ended up with me. Yeah, that,
yeah.
and
Just peel back the
it,
skin. Just
yeah, exactly. No. I like it like this.
yeah, yeah.
I
You
live in
tan. You've been
Florida.
tanning on the, yeah. You're tanning on the beach.
Listen, I'm from Florida. I need to be like this.
Yeah,
The sun is
exactly.
beaming over here. But
Right.
yeah, we're doing it together because there is a certain level of energy when a man and a woman are coming together, and we are both on the spiritual path, and both are learning. I took the steps a little bit ahead of her. She's going through a lot of changes and evolutions right now, but it's so much beautiful. My wife is super powerful, an amazing woman, and
Beautiful. I have one too, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, no, they're
Beautiful.
it's the polarities coming together to create something beautiful, you know. And
That's my wife told me about a mythical story about that man and women were one unit at one time, and then Zeus struck them with a lightning and separated them, and that's why people go, "Oh, that's my better half," because it's just we're the same. We're just half together like that. We're always looking for our other half.
It is it's like, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I personally recommend it 24 years in.
Right. Me too. Study shows that we live longer, we have more money, we're healthier, our relationships are richer, the intimacy is much more profound. Like, there's so many benefits, bro. So
absolutely,
I recommend it too. I mean, something you can't get from a dog,
No, not at all. No, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Not the same. Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much again, brother, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Until the